Director Liu, thanks for being here today. I came here in 2007, a small class, a lot of Democrats, but everybody has a different motivation why they run for office. And I was, before that, as I mentioned maybe earlier, 30 years in business. But my passion, when I look back over 50 years, and one of the motivations why I ran is because if you look back 50 years, we've only balanced the budget 5 times or 6 times out of 50 years, and you get some credit because you were there during a period of that time, so I give you some credit on that. But it blows me away to think about when I look at 49 out of 50 governors have to balance their budget. Do you believe in a constitutional balanced budget amendment? I do a lot of town halls, and I got to tell you, people just don't understand why we don't put that in place, not today, but something that gets voted in today constitutionally and then phases in over 5 or 6 years like 49 out of 50 governors have.
Congressman, I agree that we need to work together to reduce the deficit. We need to ultimately have in mind a balanced budget again. So I think in principle, I think that when the economy is growing, we should be able to have a balanced budget. I don't believe in a constitutional amendment. I think we have a lot of tools at our disposal, which if we use them well, if we have budget control rules, things like pay-go rules, control the process.
Let me just come back because we're limited on time. You know, I go to these town hall meetings, and I do a lot of them pretty much every Saturday, twice a month, and everybody's outraged, and I think that's why a lot of members lost their job this last cycle, outraged about the spending. I voted for a Democratic bill, pay-go, because I thought it's a move in the right direction, because I want to do something on a bipartisan basis. I applauded the President to set up this commission on spending. But at the end of the day, I think this is a lot of nonsense because it never seems to go anywhere. People are tired, and then I take a look at the deficits projected going forward. We're $14 trillion going to $20 trillion. And if someone presented me a plan when I seen that much ink over a period of time, I'd fire them, frankly, in my businesses. I just don't understand, the American people don't understand why everybody else but Washington has to figure out how to balance their budget. Working families, businesses, you've got to be able to cut expenses, make these strategic investments where you need to. But people, I got to just tell you, back home, my town halls, and I feel I'm a representative, they're completely outraged about where we're at as a country and where we're going. They feel like we're the next Greece, the next Portugal. The only difference is there's nobody to bail us out. I mean, does it we're at $14 trillion going to $20 trillion. If you look at a normal cost of money at 4 or 5%, you're looking at $1 trillion in interest a year in the next 4, 5, 6 years. That's where we're headed before you pay out $1 to Medicare or $1 to Social Security. Doesn't that alarm you?
No, the deficits that we're looking at do alarm me, and I think we have to remember how we got here. We got here.
But we're projecting going forward these massive. We had $1.5 trillion last year, another $1.5 trillion this year, $1 trillion that you guys are projecting next year, $500 billion deficits, and that's assuming we raise taxes going forward for the next 7 or 8 years. I mean, I just don't know how, in good conscience, you guys can do that.
Well, Congressman, the projections are based on laws that are in place in the 10 years between 2001 and 8 years between 2001 and 2009. We passed a lot of tax cuts. We expanded.
But again, why wouldn't you, if you haven't in 50 years, we've only balanced the budget 5 times, why wouldn't we want to put in a constitutional balanced budget amendment? But nobody has any confidence in Washington.
Well, but
and I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans because there's plenty of blame to go around. We need a constitutional balanced budget amendment.
So I think we need to make the decisions that would put us back on a firm financial footing. We need to pay for what we do, which is, I'm glad that you voted on a bipartisan basis for pay-as-you-go. I think it's important to apply to everything, to taxes and spending. The truth is, if you have a tax cut that you can't afford and it reduces revenue. That was
good for about 6 weeks. The state of Florida has gone from $72 billion, they've lost $7 or $8 billion, they've made the tough choices. We don't make those tough choices in Washington. We're incapable. We came within one vote in 1994 of a constitutional balanced budget amendment. The American people want us to go back there. They have to pay their bills. They can't continue to run up credit cards. If they do, they go bankrupt. And that's where we're headed, towards bankruptcy, if we don't change the way we do business in Washington.
In the 1990s, we worked together on a bipartisan basis, and we did balance the budget. I was proud to present 3 surplus budgets to the Congress on behalf of President Clinton. We have a proposal which would reduce the deficit so that we'd eliminate new spending contributing to the deficit. We'd be down to just the interest on the built-up debt that contributed to the deficit. Then we can start building down the debt, paying down the debt. Like any other large debt, until you stop adding to it, you can't pay it down.
This is
All right.
We've got to get
Thank
there.
you.
It's compound interest.
The gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Smith is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.